After 2 years of marriage, my 38M wife, 36F, has not adjusted to being in US. How can I communicate to her that this is hurting me? For all I know, I may be making a huge deal out of nothing, but it's frustrating me, so I want to see if there's a good way forward. Essentially, my wife and I have been living together for 3 years and married for 2. My wife has been on her own for most of her life, so she's used to taking care of her and nobody else. For example, I'll cook dinner for us and put plates out on the table. When the food is done, I'll grab a fork, knife, and napkin for each of us, open the fridge and ask her if she wants something to drink. She'll inform me that she already got something. I'll walk over to the table to find that she got herself a drink, cutlery, and a napkin but didn't put anything down for me or offer me a drink. If she cooks, it's about 50 to 50 if she'll give me silverware and never gives me a drink. She always gets up early on weekends, whereas I like to sleep in a little bit as I'm up early every weekday, usually 40 to 60 minutes after her. I will wake up hungry and ask my wife if she wants me to order breakfast sandwiches. She, usually sitting there with a cup of coffee, will inform me that she's already made breakfast for herself and is no longer hungry, but to feel free to get something for myself. She makes a single cup with a K-cup so there's no pot to get another cup from for myself. Everything to make breakfast is in the sink and wet, and there's no indication that she even thought for a moment that I would want to eat breakfast too. I've, multiple times, tried to approach this in different ways. If I'm direct, she keeps cutting me off by apologizing and saying she didn't do it deliberately, but nothing changes. If I do it in an aloof, lighthearted way, oops, I guess you didn't realize I would be eating too? She gets upset, asks if I want her to make me breakfast, and says she doesn't want me upset all day. If I say nothing, she assumes I'm sad, says she doesn't want me to be angry at her, and says that I'm making a big deal over nothing. We have, overall, a very good marriage. We support each other, we have the same goals, and our division of labor and chores works very well. I know that sounds very businesslike, and maybe I'm not describing it well, but the issue is a very small part of our marriage. Not worth throwing everything away over, but enough that it bothers me, and no matter how I bring it up, nothing changes. I feel like in so many interactions that we have, my first thought is to make sure she is taken care of as well as or better than I am. Her first thought is to make sure that she is taken care of and I am not even an afterthought. I feel like I have to remind her that I exist some days. At the same time, without going into too much detail, I am neurodivergent and I may be creating a giant nothing in my head. Is there a good way to communicate with her that this hurts me without her feeling like I'm being dramatic? I don't want to start not doing for her because that's contrary to my nature and I feel like it's going to create resentment on both sides. I had a college girlfriend break up with me when I pulled back and began matching what I perceived to be her effort in our relationship because she said I wasn't trying anymore. TLDR, I take care of my wife and myself every time I do something. My wife worries about herself and leaves me to fend for myself. No matter how I broach this, the behavior does not change.
Am I the asshole for telling a coworker that I'll go to HR if they keep pushing the Christmas adopt a family on me? My job has adopted a family for Christmas, and there are many options to choose from to get each adult and child. The gift options have started to fly off the board. Cool, but apparently someone has noticed that I haven't been joining in the conversation about what option they chose or what to buy a teenage boy/girl. I was asked if I chose something off the board, and I simply replied that I don't celebrate Christmas. Said coworker then said that it didn't matter if I celebrated or not, that it was a time for giving and we should help those who can't do for themselves. Now little background on me. I grew up extremely poor, as in when these holidays came around, it was nothing but misery for my siblings and I. Thanksgiving was just normal dinner for us unless we were forced to visit family, and we rarely got anything for Christmas. My mom felt that we needed to be around family during the holidays, so we were always forced to go over family's houses for Christmas and watch the kids have everything we never had. Some of my worst childhood memories were waking up on Christmas Day to nothing. We never had a tree or presents to put under it. Always having to hear my younger siblings cry from disappointment, and then being forced to go over a cousin's house and watch them open their gifts. Watching them get the things I always wanted and toss them aside to never look at them again. Being asked what I got for Christmas and trying to decide to lie to not embarrass my mom or be honest and have them pity us is not something a child should do. At some point my mom signed us up for these adopt a family/fire truck to bring gifts/whatever charity you could think of, just like the one my job is doing. She did for years, I know, as I was usually with her when she signed us up, and no one ever came through for us, ever. So it's safe to say that I feel some kind of way about these so-called charities and learned a couple of things early in life and vowed to never contribute these things, because no one cared about me and my siblings, so why should I care for anyone else this time or year? Why should I go out of my way to help when we were never helped? People metaphorically said fuck my mom and her kids, so fuck them and their kids. So back to my coworker. I told her that these people are not my responsibility, and if she felt so strongly about it, then to grab an extra card off the board. I know I shouldn't have said that, but the anger in me just spilled over. Then replied that I didn't have to be a Grinch, to which I said, if you keep harassing me about what I chose to not celebrate, then it will become an HR issue. The dropped it after that. Now I don't feel bad for what I said and I stand by how I feel. but honestly it kills me how self-righteous people can be about these things. Most just do it to make themselves feel better and think they changed a child's life with a $10 Walmart gift card. But I overheard some talking about the incident and it put me in a bad light. I know I don't owe anyone an explanation, but I didn't like hearing being talked about like that without any context. AITA for how I responded. Edit. I think some people are missing the point here. My job has adopted one family and the cards are a number of different things they want. So for the people who are saying that I'm ruining some kid's Christmas, you're wrong. They're getting stuff from everyone else, just not me. Also, just because I choose to not donate to random strangers, like most people choose not to do, doesn't mean I don't give back in other ways. My family is my priority, and they will be provided for first and foremost, and that taught me that me and mine will never come before anyone else's own family. They didn't owe us anything, and I'm simply adopting that same mindset. Anyone else who says otherwise is lying. My nieces and nephews will never know the hurt my siblings and I felt over the holidays. And finally, I work hard for my money, so I'm going to spend it how I like on whom I like. I just find it funny that some of you are so damn sanctimonious and hypocritical. How often do you donate, especially in this economy? Also, how often do you donate to poor children outside of the holiday season? As someone in the comments mentioned, there's more than just the holiday season that poor kids need things. Am I the asshole for telling my mom I won't be coming home for Christmas or any holiday? When I went to pre-K, I met a girl called Amy. We became BFFs right away and were always together. She was really close to my mom and I was really close to her parents. When Amy and I were 5, her mom died. It was really sudden and Amy was sad for so long after. She was the chattier friend of the two of us, but in that time I became that so she didn't have to be. We spent more time together than usual because her dad wanted her to have a friend close. As we got older I told her about my dad, how he never wanted to know me. And I confided that I didn't think my grandma liked me very much because of how mad she seemed when she told me about my dad. I confided in her about how much it hurt to be unwanted and rejected, and how I wished I could have a dad and a bigger family more than anything. Amy said she wished we were sisters, and the two of us jokingly called each other that by the time we were 8. We had so many sleepovers, we might as well have been sisters, because we were together more than we were apart. When we were 10, her dad and my mom started dating, and everything fell apart. Amy's whole wishing we were sisters thing wasn't so true, and she hated my mom for being with her dad. She started hating me as well. Over the next year and a half, while my mom and Amy's dad dated, Amy started bullying me. I begged my mom not to be with Amy's dad anymore, because it was so upsetting and stressful for me, and Amy turned so hateful to both of us. Mom got mad and said she deserved to be happy. After mom and Amy's dad got married, Amy's treatment of me and mom got worse. Amy even started spreading around school the stuff about my dad and my grandma, and she'd say in front of others that I was never going to have a dad, because even the one who was supposed to love me did everything not to be my dad. She said I was broken and unlovable. At home, she was so hateful and would get in my face and mock me and tell me she wished my mom had died instead of hers. She even accused me of making my mom and her dad get married. When we didn't have school to go to, it was worse. 2020 to early 2022 was awful. I graduated high school in May, and I won a scholarship through this program I was a part of. I get a year paid for 100%, and I can possibly get 80% for each year after if I meet certain criteria. So I moved out of state for college, and now that I'm here, I don't want to go back. My mom didn't protect me. Amy dads didn't protect me. They put their happiness first, and it's not that I don't believe they should be happy, but it came at our expense and mostly mine because Amy would not leave me alone. My mom started calling me a week ago, which is the first I've heard from her in months, and she was talking about Christmas, and I told her I wasn't going home for Christmas or any holiday. She got so mad that I ended the call, but she texted saying I can't run away from this. Am I the asshole? My 37F husband, 39M, went to a work dinner with a woman and was gone 5 hours, wasn't where he said he'd be, and wouldn't respond to my calls and texts. I kicked him out, and he says I'm overreacting. Can anyone help me make sense of what happened here? My husband of 6 years works in a field where sales reps are constantly vying to get him to use their products. One of the ways they do this is by putting on dinners at upscale restaurants, think expensive steakhouses, and inviting groups to come listen to a presentation about the product in exchange for a free steak dinner. So far this year, my husband has attended upwards of 40 of these dinners. I find this a little excessive, especially considering we have a 3-year-old and a 5-month-old at home, and I rarely get a reciprocal night out. For context, we've been out together without the kids 4 times in the past year. I have asked him to cut back on these dinners, but he refuses, saying he hopes to leverage these relationships into brand-sponsored speaking opportunities that could become a temporary source of secondary income. To his credit, this has happened before, and he made some good money before his stint as a speaker ended. Anytime I complain about the number of dinners he attends, he accuses me of not caring about our financial situation, or even outright trying to sabotage it. It is my understanding that he attends far more of these dinners than most people in his field. Okay, onto the dinner in question. Last week he forwarded me a screenshot of a text from a sales rep who said she would be in town for 2 nights and wanted to have dinner with just him while she was there. This is fairly unusual, as most dinners are group affairs with friends and colleagues. On one other occasion, he has met with a sales rep one-on-one, but it was an older man. On this occasion, it was an attractive woman around our age. I looked her up on the socials. They agreed to meet on Monday at 6:30 at a nice tapas restaurant in an expensive part of town because, according to my husband, it was close to her hotel. Made sense, though I raised an eyebrow at his phrasing. He got annoyed, but I pointed out that it was a dumb thing to say to your wife when you're meeting a woman for dinner at a nice restaurant. He left the house at 6:04. For context, I am extremely sleep deprived. I'm up with a new baby several times a night, and my husband has refused to participate in night feedings. So, by 9 o'clock I was tired and really wanted to sleep, but the baby was colicky and crying, and it was keeping my toddler awake. I texted my husband to find out when he thought he'd be home so I could have a sense how long it'd be before I could sleep. In the text I said it was NBD, just give me a ballpark idea of when you'll be home. He didn't respond. He wears an Apple Watch and is constantly responding to texts on his phone, so it was annoying to me that he couldn't give me an ETA after 3 hours at dinner. I called him at 9:15 and he sent me straight to voicemail. I called again at 9:30 with the same result. At this point, I texted and told him I was calling the restaurant. When I did, the host told me there was no one in the restaurant, and he could confidently say that no one matching my husband's description had been into the restaurant at all that night. I texted that I was calling his parents to see if they had heard from him. They hadn't. Finally, at almost 10 o'clock, I texted and told him not to come home. 15 minutes after my last text, he sent me an automated text from his GPS app telling me he'd be home by 10:20 p.m. I texted again and told him to go to his parents' house. He showed up anyway, and I wouldn't let him in. He didn't have keys. He said I was acting crazy. He said the tapas restaurant was more like a sports bar, so they went to a nicer place across the street. He said his phone was in his pocket on silent, except he had to have declined the calls in order to send me straight to voicemail. He said he was trying to generate revenue for our family. He said my self-esteem was not his problem. He said my behavior had better be a symptom of PMDD. He said I was creating events in my mind. Long story short, I didn't let him in. He slept at his parents' and came over to the house in the morning to get his stuff. He's there again tonight, after going to yet another dinner, and likely will be for the foreseeable future. I think his behavior was shady and disrespectful to me, but he thinks I'd blown the whole thing out of proportion. I'm so tired that I can't make sense of it, and I need to ask Reddit if I'm justified in my anger, or if he's right and I'm blowing this out of proportion. What do you think? Thanks in advance. TLDR, my husband went to a work dinner with a woman, was gone for 5 hours, wasn't where he said he'd be, and wouldn't respond to my calls and texts. Now he's calling me crazy and paranoid.